This is Death and Dying, a lifelong practice number 45. This is an extraordinary dialogue with Camille and the daughter of Cab Calloway, Chris Calloway.
Hello, this is Camille Adair Norwick. Welcome to Death and Dying, a lifelong practice, where we explore living more fully by embracing transitions and the natural cycles of life and death.
Take your time to know who you are before you go. And you'll know.
Today we have a special podcast in honor of our dear friend Chris Calloway, and it's her birthday today. Hello, Chris.
Hi, Camille.
Thank you so much for joining us on this sacred day of yours.
Thank you, sweetie. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. So I would love to talk with you about your experience with cancer. And for the audience, they're used to me talking about cancer at the very end stage in relationship to death and dying. And as we talk on this podcast about dying being something that is a long process and could potentially be a lifelong practice, something that we're conscious of and preparing for our entire lives. And I'd like to explore that with you because we actually have not had anyone on the show who is dealing with something that could potentially be a terminal illness, but really isn't, but sort of is that wake-up call.
Definitely.
And I was wondering if you would be willing to take us on a journey from the time of your diagnosis.
Okay. To today.
Just sort of starting with the diagnosis and what that was like for you.
Well, first of all, the initial diagnosis was in 1987. And at the time, I was practicing I was participating in a religious practice of chanting of a Buddhist mantra, and it was just so bizarre because I went for a mammogram, and the doctor called me back and said, "You need to come into my office," and I went in, and I wasn't even thinking anything, and then the funny thing was, he had put my little mammogram X-ray up on that little white thing that they do where they put the light on behind it. Mm-hmm. And then he took a magnifying glass, one of those little hand magnifying things, and he held it up and he said, "You see that tiny little dot?" And I'm squinting and he's magnifying the whole thing. He said, "Well, that's the beginning of intracellular cancer." And I thought, geez, you can't see the thing. It's just so, it's so small. And, excuse me. And then the decision was made to do a biopsy on it. And then the decision was made to do the mastectomy. At the time, like I said, I was practicing this mantra. And I went to the seniors of the organization and I said, well, they tell me I have cancer. What am I supposed to do? And the senior said, well, you have to chant 1,000,000 of these mantras. Mm. And I'm like, wait a minute. Cancer is probably better than having to chant 1,000,000 of these mantras. You know what I mean? This is crazy. This is insane. My grace, of course, was the fact that becoming as involved in the challenge of chanting 1,000,000 of these mantras, my life condition, my spiritual energy, my consciousness, everything was raised to a much higher level, to the point where doctor's appointments were like, is this going to take much longer? Because I really have got to get back. I've got something to do. It's like, well, I'm up to 500 or I'm up to, 600 or something. And it kept me in a mindset that was above the how would I say, I hate to say mundane, but above the ordinary experience of this kind of freaky, crazy thing. And I did fine. We did the mastectomy. The cancer was gone, and that was all there was. And I went on with my life. That was, how many years ago? And then here in Santa Fe, I began to have a reoccurrence. I found another lump. We got rid of the lump. And it's been a process of on and on after that. For me, it's never been about life or death, Camille. It's been about my spiritual journey. And so that the fear of, oh, I'm going to die, is not my first concern with this experience of cancer. Of course, when we got to the chemo stage, which of course is, the infinite King Kong boogeyman, Saddam Hussein of the cancer world, this is this terrible thing that's just going to ravage your body and make you so terrible. And it came back, and it was to the point where I was needing the chemo, was when she flung herself on the floor and just was like, oh, I'm going to die. Mm-hmm. And the little voice said, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm going to die. I've got cancer. I'm going to die. And the little voice was like, yeah, and of course, in my only true dramatic way, it's like, you cannot mock me. Why are you mocking me with this is very tragic. This is real. And the little voice said, no, honey, little angel baby, precious child of God. Of course you're going to die. Life is a terminal disease. No one gets out of here alive. So welcome to a reality. Welcome to a wisdom. Welcome to a place of understanding and realism that is sacred.
And is this part of your spirituality?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. See. So then the crying, which was so amazing, then the crying continued in the reality of that. Mm-hmm. Into tears for all of the women who lost their sons in Vietnam, or all of the mothers that were watching their children die in Baghdad, and all of the starving children in Sudan, and so on and so forth. And as a result, my heart just swelled up. It just opened to this magnanimous state of compassion that began for myself. And I was graced enough to be able to step into that and to endure that, to let it open up my heart to have compassion for every suffering that there is. Mm.
And that is, in a way, the grace and the gift, isn't it?
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And then I guess because I don't know, so then I started really fantasizing about dying. And thinking, well, we as humans are very excited, and we prepare for the birth of a soul coming in. And it's an expectation, and it's exciting, and there's a preparation that's made for the coming in. Mm-hmm. And it is a mystery as that soul emerges from the womb into this dimension. And we're excited, and it's miraculous, and it's mysterious. And I thought, well, why couldn't the other side of that be the same way? Mm-hmm. And I began to think, well, wow, this could be great. You know what I mean? This could be terrific if I was able to prepare and able to surrender to this final or ultimate human experience as I take off, out of this dimension. So these are the kind of things I've been playing with, and I've come to acknowledge and honor myself in several different roles, perhaps, in this journey of cancer. The first one being what I like to refer to myself as a person living with cancer survivor. That over these many, many years, I have managed to sustain my life and to be living with the cancer, and a survivor of the cancer, overcoming the cancer to the point where I'm still breathing. And there are then those times, though, when I know finally, and this is a big piece that I've just kind of recognized just recently, there are the days when I'm a cancer patient. And those are the days when there is fear. And those are the days when there is trepidation. And those are the days when there is anxiety and maybe a little bit of anger. And I'm extremely vulnerable. And it's, I think, difficult for people to be with me. It's a clinical situation. It definitely needs nurses, and it definitely needs doctors, and it definitely needs technology, and it needs the science of the cancer situation when I'm a cancer patient. When I'm a survivor, it's like, let's party.
So are there ways in which you can really identify that your life has changed, the quality of it has changed, or even sort of the way in which you spend your days has changed since your diagnosis?
Well, totally. There are days when I don't feel well, and on those days I've learned to, as the Buddhists say, to be present. Those are the days, guess what? I don't feel well. It's pretty simple. And it's I've been able to create for myself a relationship with myself in those situations where it's okay. It's absolutely okay. And from the point of saying, well, I don't feel well, I need to do the dishes, I need to get out and go pay the bills, or you should answer the telephone and talk to somebody, and all of those things are kind of like, now how important is that in comparison to you being present and being at peace in the moment, knowing full well that there are leaves on the trees and there are grains of dirt and sand on this massive planet that are in perfect order. Let it go. You're just fine. You're exactly where you need to be right now. And release yourself and be there. And that has changed everything. In terms of, some people are contentious, and this saying goes, you better pick your argument, pick your battle. The living with cancer has given me great skill at choosing what to get upset about. It's like, oh, the phone bill's late. Well, I think I'll have a fit over that. Right. No, I think you need to compare that with, possibly being very, very sick with cancer and not able to get out of the bed. Mm-hmm. All right. So what's the 10 and what's the 3? And I think it's leveled out my playing field. It's leveled out my personality. It's leveled out my little demons. The demons have become much more friendly at this point because I think they really like to chill out, And that's been the gift and the grace. And the more I am able to surrender to that, the better the quality of my life is.
So beautifully put. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you're talking a lot about how that's impacted you in your relationship with yourself, and it reminds me of what Andrea Levine said in the interview that I had with her and Stephen for the film Solace that I'm right now editing, is that she has leukemia, and she talks about cancer being a teacher's training. Mm-hmm. And everything that you're saying just reminds me of that. It's almost like it's a spiritual path unto itself.
I totally think it is.
Yeah.
I kind of like atrophy when I hear people talk about chemo being rat poison or, this deadly killer stuff. I just, I feel bad for people that see it that way. I mean, I used to bless the chemo. I used to see it and give it an intention. And know that it was the juice of the mother. It was the mother's embryonic fluid that was going into my body. And, at the highest point, would meet the cancer cells and love them into extinction. You know what I mean? It's just like that, that whole, it's not Ramakrishna. Which one is it? The guy who writes the poetry about the love.
Rumi?
Rumi. Mm-hmm. How Rumi talks about the love being so intense that it just diffuses everything. It burns and it ignites and it just pulls that whole thing, the whole heart thing. And that was the way I saw certainly my first round of chemo. I believe right now that I've just doing good. I have a healing. I just don't. People say, I say to people, well, I'm having chemo, and they go, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, there's really no need to be sorry. You might want to feel sorry if I lived in Sudan and in a refugee camp with no clean water and no toilets and no food and no safety. I mean, you might want to feel sorry if, I was living in Baghdad where I didn't know whether my home was going to be bombed or if my loved ones were going to go out in the street and never come back. You might want to, but I have a roof over my head. I have food in my refrigerator. I have a refrigerator. I have a bathroom. I have toilet. I have fresh water. I have excellent, excellent medical attention.
So what would you rather have people say to you?
Oh, well, that's kind of, let's see. How's that going? How's that going? It's
so to normalize it as opposed to, because it seems to me like in a way we project suffering on people when maybe there's not the suffering that we think that there is. And the suffering really has to do with our discomfort with what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, right now, my tumor markers have really jumped up, and I'm actually trying to set a world record on how many different chemos I can take before I get to the remission chemo. Okay. And it's kind of like a little game of taking different candies or different, ointments or things like that to find out which one works best. But my markers kind of have shot up. The last 2 treatments were not very effective. And I'm hearing, just like you're saying, in the voice of some loved ones, a fear. Mm-hmm. And that to me is now my next challenge, is to then release myself from connection with their fear. I can't remove their fear, but I can release myself from being connected to their fear. And again, it's just the gift of cancer. It's saving my life. It's giving me grace, and it's giving me, the footsteps to walk the walk that I do think I came here to do. I'll never forget being like, must have been about 10 or 11 years old. And I was laying in my bed and I closed my eyes, and I said to myself, okay, so my eyes are closed. I don't see anything out there. I don't see my room. I don't see where I am. Is that because it disappeared? Or is it because my eyes are closed and I'm not seeing it? And so on this 50-year journey, I'm understanding that, it is because I'm not seeing it that it's not there. That it is from this subjective point of view that I create my life and I create my existence and the way it goes.
Well, I think it's really important to hear your story, because if you think about the number of people in the world that deal with cancer, it's staggering. And at the same time, how scary that C word is for people.
It is.
And, you hear, if someone said, I'm going to move to Tibet and I'm going to enroll in this intensive monk training, that's, there could just very well be more difficulty in that path than having cancer. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, but really in a way, it's like, there are opportunities that come our way that are appropriate for us, that are a sophisticated spiritual path. Mm-hmm. This happens to be one of them, and this is yours. Mm-hmm. And I think that, hopefully in our lifetimes, we'll see a shift with that so that we can actually celebrate that or say congratulations, because on some level it's like you've accepted a big journey and a big training.
Yes. Well, that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm firmly convinced I'm extraterrestrial. And, when everybody was like, You know, when they're saying, we've got to send the heavy troops down there now because, you know, we've got this huge transformation thing going on. Like a little woo-woo, you know, with DNA and electromagnetic fields and all that stuff. I mean, I love all that. That resonates totally with me. I mean, I watch NASA video files, you know, the whole space shuttle thing, and I'm like, oh, look, that's just like so cool. It's just, I resonate so hard with that. But, excuse me. And then trying to come into this dimension and deal with the dimension. For me, at some level, it's just been, without the cancer, I probably would just have, you know, folded up my mission and, you know, just done my time and got out of here. But with the cancer, it's kept the mission very much in focus. I've promised Spirit, God, higher power, whatever it is, that whenever I go into the Cancer Institute of New Mexico, which is where I take my treatment, that I'm dressed, I'm all made up, I have on something nice, and I'm smiling. And, you know, to go into the infusion room, which just used to terrify me because, you know, chemo was death. It wasn't, you know, chemo was, what was it? Not The Way We Were. What was the one with Ali McGraw when she died of cancer in the movie? And then there was The Rose. Was it The Rose?
The love story.
Love story. Oh, police. She's like got the bucket there. She's vomiting the whole thing. It's just disgusting. The whole it was just suffer. So going into the infusion room was like, a trauma for me. I mean, I was blessed in my first experience that I had access to two chemo nurses, one in particular, that brought a higher consciousness and a compassion and a how would I say it, a vibrancy or an energy into the infusion space that I was able to pick up on that was better than what I thought it would be, and much more spiritual than I thought it would be. And I was deeply grateful to having, again, the grace to be able to step into that type of situation and be aware that that's what was going on. So it was nurturing, and I was able to go there. But I go into the infusion center, and, you know, there are sick people there. And they're sitting in their little chairs, and they're taking their little, you know, God-given medicine, and their little faces are down. And I mean, I'll go sit next to some guy, and I'm going to get my infusion, and he's looking around, and the nurse says to me, well, is there anything I can get for you before we get started? And I say, yeah, I'd love to have an ice-cold Corona. And the little guy next to me looks at me, you know, and he looks. And so then she said, and so then she left or something, and I leaned over to him, I said, so, where are the dancing girls? And he's like, finally, he's laughing, and he goes, and he looks at me, and he goes, you know, I gotta tell you, I haven't laughed like this all day. I've never laughed like this when I was taking chemo. I said, oh, come on in here, honey. We're having a grand old time. Look at us getting good old medicine. Look how God's taking care of us.
Oh.
We are it. And, you know, we are the chosen ones. Come on, get with it. Honor your power. Honor your grace and your... So they see me coming, and I've got some really good friends. You know, my friends in chemo. My chemo friends. Because I have that ability. I have that. I'm the actress, I'm the entertainer, and I truly wish to resonate with the joy of life.
I'm curious about that archetype, the actress, the entertainer. You come from a family of entertainers, your dad being Cab Calloway. Because I'm not at all from a family of entertainers, so this is sort of something that I wonder about. How much of that, is that deep within you? I mean, that's not something that you have to turn on. That's just very much part of who you are.
Exactly.
And is that part of who you are? Do you feel like that's learned? Or is that sort of part of your essence? I'm just curious about that. Because I am like the opposite. I have a tendency to go like deep into hermit mode. I'd be the one in the Cancer Institute like in hermit mode. You know, and I really marvel at people who can do that and who can bring, because I think humor is such a powerful healing tool, and who can sort of, you know, you break that whatever that mood that's going on. You know, I think that's really a wonderful thing.
Well, I had an astrological chart done one time where the guy explained to me why I was this kind of outgoing personality with, you know, all kinds of stuff in all kinds of houses and all kinds of outrageous, powerful stuff. No, it's just the way I am. You know, 7 years old. I cannot possibly eat these lima beans. I will absolutely perish if I do. I mean, oh, you're so dramatic. Oh, you're so over the top. And it's my modus operandi. It's the way, it's the gift that I've been given. And I, again, am indebted to the cancer journey. Because the longer I stay on the journey, the more I realize how to use that outgoing ability to make people smile or make people feel better about themselves in specifically a mission kind of a way that will serve and benefit humankind, not just to pay the rent or because I'm Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? But because, and it's taken me 60 years to really understand. And I'm at a transformational place now where I really feel as though I've completed a spiritual transformation. What is happening now is that energetically, because of the differences in, time linear line, I'm trying to catch up with my transformation. I'm trying to step into my transformation. But that, because I'm just still in my little human thing, I'm just like kind of trotting. It's done. It's completed. I just have to step into it. And that's what's happening. And it's fascinating. And I hope that I'm given the opportunity to serve humanity, serve mankind, and support and let us all understand how blessed we are, and how if we choose, we can resonate with joy. You know, I mean, I've questioned the fact that, I took the Asiac tea, or I did this, or this one did the healing on me, and I still have the cancer. And it was kind of like, well, you read all these stories about everybody going into instant remission. Where's mine? It's like, no, Chris, that's really not the issue here. Yours is right here. Yours is right in front of you. So, that I watched my auntie die. I lost my son 4 years ago, and that was kind of like my first real slam in the face with the death and dying thing. And in studying Buddhism, I was, kind of understanding at a spiritual level when one leaves this dimension, when one leaves this body. Having to face that with my son, whom I had been with like an hour and a half prior to his passing, and then going back and seeing his body without the spirit in it was, I hope it doesn't sound too bizarre, but was fascinating. I mean, I had seen my father's dead body and that type of thing, and those things are just so terrifying. We've been programmed to think that they're just so scary, you know what I'm saying? And there's something so blessed and so miraculous, the same mystery as the baby coming in.
I completely agree with you.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's just a mystery. It's like, oh my gosh, look at it. It's just like so.
And when you see the body, there's something really incredible about that, isn't it? Because it's the precious body, but it's not everything.
No, it isn't. And that's where I think we're headed. I do believe that globally and humanly we're in transformation, and that the darkness that's pervasive all around us, could certainly be equated to the cancer darkness that's eating things up and perpetuating its devastation everywhere it goes, and festering and growing and eating and growing and eating and growing. And so then in a small way, my attempts to adjust this and make it holy will have an effect on the total transformation. Because it dawned on me, Camille, the other day. I'm thinking, whoa, people are born, I don't know, I listened to the radio or something, and they were talking about the statistics, the birth statistics, and people are being born every 3 minutes or something like that. And people are dying every 3 minutes. And I thought, there's a bunch of folk on this planet. There's just like a whole bunch of souls up here. So I got this vision of this kind of like passage like the Holland Tunnel or something. I don't know if you've ever been to New York or something, with like this 2-lane highway, especially like the Holland Tunnel, where one's going one direction and the other one's going the other direction. And it's this constant flow. It never stops.
And it would look like that, wouldn't it, if you think of the numbers?
I would just think so.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, Jesus, what the heck are you afraid of? Just jump in the tunnel. Right. Get on the train, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing, too, about the dying thing is like, okay, go, oh, my God, oh, she died. Oh, that's so terrible. Terrible? Don't get me wrong. Life is great. But some of this human stuff is a little boring, a little dull. And it's just kind of very restrictive.
It can be laborious.
Laborious and repetitive and then redundant. So it's almost like when one would pass from this dimension to whatever, I like to say they've gone to glory. Mm-hmm. I like to say they're just out of the body. Oh, this is going to be so much better. This is going to be just a little bit lighter, you know what I'm saying? Because I believe that my soul is as big as the universe. Mm-hmm. My soul and my wisdom and my truth and my reality is as large as anything there is. Mm-hmm. I almost look forward to going back to that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that the fact that you've done meditation in a Buddhist practice, not that I'm just a proponent of Buddhism, but I think any time when we have an internal practice, it's like going inside. That's where the big world is. And because you've already touched those places, you have a conscious awareness of your largeness and your expansiveness. And I think that that's really wonderful. And I'd like to share a story with you if I could. I have a client right now, and I can talk about her because she's in the film and she's signed releases. And so all of her stuff is really sort of out in the open at this point in her process. And she has cervical cancer. And 2 weeks ago, Wednesday, which is part of the reason why I have not been on the show, things have been pretty busy for me with my hospice practice, so we skipped a couple weeks of shows. I ended up spending the night with her because it was the night that we thought she was bleeding to death. And, she lost a lot of blood. And there were a lot of people that were called to the house to say the final goodbyes. And her son was there. And she also lost a son 2 years ago and actually has had communication with him and visions of him in the last few weeks as she's getting closer. But something that has happened, she's talked about being perched. She has now for the last few months, she talks about feeling like she's perched in the netherworld, that she's partly here and partly on the other side. And, sort of what it's like for her living in that in-between place. But she even went further this time and actually was very, very close to dying, and her vital signs. I thought for sure this was it. She showed signs of actively dying, and it was just because she's fairly young, she really made this comeback. But she talked about an experience that she had where she was laying there and someone in the room said, "Mary, go to the light." And she said it broke her out of this focus and this concentration for where she was going. She said there was a huge, dark, purple, very dark, blackish purple presence in the room, or energy in the room. And she said it was the most comforting energy place that you could ever possibly imagine in your human mind. Mm-hmm. And she said, I was working so hard to get there. Mm-hmm. And she said, when I heard someone say, go to the light, it distracted me.
Sure enough did, didn't it?
And then she said, I just said out loud, stop talking. Yes. Because she thought, wait a minute, it's not light. Mm-hmm. But then she got into her head. It's not that it's like negative. It's that it's this beautiful, dark, purple, black place that I'm going. Mm-hmm. And she just has talked about that as the most incredible thing. And since then, her energy has really changed. And she just is so not afraid.
Yes.
It's almost like she's just kind of like, When is it going to happen?
Right.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Whenever you pick me up, I'm ready.
Yeah. And that was really wonderful for everyone involved. It was really wonderful to watch her be that close and then to be able to come back and talk about it and to actually talk about, and I'm not doing it justice, but to talk about the quality of this energy in this place that she was going, that was drawing her, that was so comforting. And it reminds me of what you're saying.
Well, that makes me feel good too, because I mean, I'm, all this is coming from up above, and it's coming through me. I open my mouth and let it come out, and then have to step into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to give the impression to anyone that may be listening that this is like putting some microwave popcorn in the microwave, and you just set it for 3 minutes and watch it pop and then take it out and eat it. There are steps along the way. There is energy that's constantly shifting, and there is fear, and there is anxiety, and there is trepidation. But
well, it's like any teacher's training. You're going to experience the darkest of the dark, aren't you? And the lightest of the light.
Have to.
Yeah.
Have to. And right now, my mantra, I mean, I don't know, maybe good religious Christian Catholic people would be upset with me, but right now I'm into like the second half of the rosary, which is I get this kind of clump in my throat, or an anxiety will come in, and I'll just feel anxious, or feel afraid, or feel tight, or whatever, and I just kind of go, Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for me now and at the hour of my death. And then I'll stop and I'll say, I can't believe you said that. What do you mean? So like every day you're talking about the hour of your death? What's up with that? And I'm like, well, that's what it is. That's what it is. If I can, if I know that the benevolent energies, the love of God, the perfection that brings a leaf out of a twig, is with me at the hour of my death, well, golly, that's going to be great. I've got a little support team going here. So it's very interesting, because I will say that at least 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. And I always listen to myself say, pray for me now, which is really the impetus of the mantra is pray for me now. I'm confused. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel afraid. I'm lost. I don't know what's happening. So pray for me now in your benevolent wisdom of the universe. And this is my prayer. And as we pray together, pray for me now. But then, and at the hour of my death, just like knocks me off the bench. I mean, I'm just like, how can you be there, Chris? It's like, well, because that's what's happening. And it's very comforting, and it's very nurturing to think that the energies of love that support the universe and support the life and the living would be as focused with me at that point.
I find the rosary,
lovely.
I find that part of the rosary hugely comforting. And I've had some of my most take me to my knees in a good way moments around listening to the rosary and this work with Catholic families, and it's just been a huge thing for me. I think it is. There's something just really gorgeous about that, and humbling and comforting all at the same time.
Well, I was knocked out when I really realized that it said Holy Mary, Mother of God.
Mother of God. That's huge.
That's it.
That's how I felt, Chris.
Exactly.
I felt the same thing.
That's
Holy
it right there.
Mary, Mother of God.
Let's get some goddess energy in here. Come on.
Oh, I love it. I've spent a lot of time crying listening to people say the rosary because it's been so moving for me. Yeah.
Very good. That's cool. So today I'm a survivor. Tomorrow I could be a patient, which is just like kind of whiny, cranky. And please, I don't want to give anybody the impression, that I'm just like walking on cloud 9. This is the third dimension. This is the dimension of cause and effect. This is the dimension of opposites. I mean, there are physical realities that are real, and I'm physical, and I'm involved in those. But my focus is more on what we've been talking about, and that's my drive. That's my clutch. That's what I'm. Because I have no intentions of suffering, Camille. None. None. Okay. I mean, I've gone as far as researching assisted suicide deaths in Portland, Oregon, in Oregon, and having some great big huge ass party with just a whole bunch of folk doing all kinds of illegal things and having food and great time, and it being this hoop-de-doop, and it's just like kiss everybody goodbye and get out of here. Now that I think is, a lot of me trying to control how it would be, and if anything sets me off, it's just the concept of suffering.
Yeah.
Being the victim and suffering, because I don't want that.
I think you're not alone in that. I think that is and when I talk with people, they say that death is not my greatest fear. The pain and the suffering that could come along with that, that's what I really fear.
Yeah.
So you're definitely not alone in that. And Oregon has been sort of coming up in those terms lately,
Yeah, before it gets to the point, like I said, I watched my auntie die. I felt I needed to, because I wasn't with my son when he passed away. And there was some kind of not penance but some kind of obligation that I felt as though I had to be in the space of a dying person. And to, at that moment, when the little full-time nurse came in and said, well, she's gone, just about 10 minutes. She hadn't been dead 3 minutes or something. To be able to go to her, and myself and the little nurse just, make a circle around her and bless her and bless her transition and pray for her moving over and above and beyond, and spraying the room with the roses scent, which she loved so much, and singing her off to the other side. I just, and Aunt Roxy suffered. And that's one of the things that me no do. Me no do. I don't need to be a martyr.
Well, there are a lot of people out there who have a great deal of knowledge about how to assist people in that process. And I actually, because, as a hospice nurse, I've dealt with that enough that I actually can visualize what I'll be wearing and what the sheets will look like. And if I'm in pain, give me the morphine.
Right.
If all of it.
Yeah.
And I really actually, because of the work that I do, I don't have a fear of the suffering, because I know really what's possible.
I see.
In the way of medications and treatments that are very gentle, that can help people through that process. And that's one of my things that I like to talk about, is just increasing the awareness around that. It really is, it's not necessary. The pain and the suffering aren't necessary.
Right. Now, how do you help the loved ones? That's kind of like something that I'm probably not, not afraid of dying. I would think, my poor little sister.
Yeah. Well, of course, we can't take away people's pain and their suffering around loss. That's something that as human beings we all go through. But I think that by educating people and just sort of the reminding that this is a natural process.
Yeah.
The death, like as you said, death is like birth, and we're all going there.
Yeah.
And this is this person's time, and this is a sacred. How do we set this up to honor this as part of the sacred journey, so that it's not pushed into the closet and seen as something fearful?
Right.
And I think when people have people around them, like a hospice team, to help hold the space and help to set the space for that experience to happen, we naturally, as human beings, move into honoring the dying process as sacred.
Okay.
We really know that on a deep level, and I think it's just sort of having someone to sort of be the midwife that gives us permission and holds the space. People come into that. And then, of course, we have the grieving, which, as you said, breaks the heart and makes it bigger.
Right.
And that is something that's painful and delicious and beautiful, and we don't want to get in the way of that.
Okay. Okay. And I know you probably, do you have to, in order to pass over, or in a conscious way, do you have to know, I know there are different belief systems with different religious or semi-religious rituals. like the whole thing with the Egyptians and the tombs, and they used to bury them with all their stuff because they were going to take this big long journey, and the Native Americans have their understanding thing, and the Australian bush people have their thing. And I mean, I asked you the question, is it necessary to have a specific preparation in mind for a journey that is a specific journey, as in the case of the Egyptians? Or can you just go ahead and die?
Oh, I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, I think that we're all going to die just fine. I think it's more for, depending on what our religious and spiritual beliefs are. For example, Buddhists, firmly, many of them believe that the spirit hangs out and that there are the bardos that people go through. And so that period of staying home for 3 days and having people pray and chant and light incense and having all of that for that 3-day period before the cremation is really important. And here in Santa Fe, we have a large Buddhist community, and so we do see that, and that's something as a hospice community we're really prepared to support them in. And we have had people where we help them to get the dry ice and the whole 9 yards. And then there are people who just want to be taken away right away. Some people, it's very individual, but our job really is to go in, and depending on how soon we're brought into the picture, then we start working not only with the client but with the family. But I have clients right now, and I talk with them. It's like, what would you like to see for yourself? Would you like to be involved in writing your obituary? Would you like to be involved in the service or the sacred gathering and the ritual that happens around your physical body? And how do you want that to go? I mean, one client, we got into such a deep conversation that, she said, oh, well, I guess I want this mortuary, when she found out it was the only one in town that wouldn't transport her body before it was cremated. A lot of people don't know that, but when you start getting into those details, and we don't think about those things, but she said, well, I want to go from home to the mortuary and I want to stay there and be cremated there, but it took a lot of conversation for her to even get to that place where she was even thinking in those terms. And now she's done all of this research into having a Celtic wake, and she wants to, so in a way it's kind of like giving people permission to, we're sitting here on your birthday.
I know.
And it's such a sacred thing. And you've been given permission your whole life to celebrate your birthday, but we're not really given permission to celebrate our death day and to prepare for that. But it certainly is worthy of a big party, and it certainly is worthy of preparation.
Okay. Because I was wondering about that, because I know there's a lot of little systematic things, and and Jewish people sit Shiva, and they have to put them in the ground by a certain, and I guess it's all just practical stuff that just has evolved over the years. But so in order to have like a really cool transition, you don't have to go through the steps. It's not like
I don't think you have to go through the steps, but I think to give it some thought, just to get to your own authentic place about it, is really worth something. Because, for me, just being around as many people as I am now, even though I'm not a practicing Buddhist, I don't necessarily want to need to stay home for 3 days, but I know that I don't want to be shipped off right away.
Right.
I definitely want to stay put for a while and have my loved ones around me, and you know what I mean? And that's just something I've become clear on, and it's not something that I can explain or I know why or I have specific doctrine around. It's just a feeling that I have.
Well, I love this, though. This is and on my birthday, which, I don't know, I've never been a big birthday person anyway, so it's okay. But
well, thank you for sharing your special day with us. It's really an honor. And before we sign off, I'd like to let people know how they can find out more about you and the work that you do with your singing. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's one of the things that's kind of like fallen into proper perspective. I used to think that my raison d'etre was to get up and entertain and be wonderful and lovely and sing and all this other kind of stuff. Now it's it's not the real focus in my life anymore. It's there's a bigger picture, but I'm having a lot of fun. We have a family-run business called Creative Arts by Callaway LLC, and we are preparing many activities to celebrate the centennial of my dad. His 100th birthday would be 2007, 2008.
Oh wow!
So we're doing a bunch of really nice things there, a postage stamp and star on Hollywood Boulevard and awards and documentaries and all kinds of stuff like
Nice.
that. My contribution to that is a podcast that I'm doing on a regular basis that is entitled Callaway at CallawayHeidiHo.com. I'm getting it straight slowly but surely. And I'm telling, I'm playing the character of your main queen. And I'm telling great Cab Calloway stories out of the era of the big band's 1930s and 40s, stories about the Calloway legacy and how it has perpetuated and influenced contemporary music and music of the 20th century. And it's a ton of fun. I talk a lot of jive talk. And so it's CallawayHeidiHo.com.
And we'll have that on the
So
website
listen.
as well.
Please listen in, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
And you can get links from there to the Creative Arts by Callaway website, my family website, which has a plethora of photos and information and just tons of really cool Cab Calloway stuff.
Oh, that's so great.
It's nice.
Great. Well, my podcast sister, I thank you. And I have a quick question. Are you familiar with the song, and I don't know the name of it, People Get Ready, There's a Train A-Comin'? Don't need no ticket, you just get on board.
Right?
Do you know that song?
People get ready. There's a train a-comin', comin'. Don't need no ticket. You just get on board. That's it.
I love that song. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You made my day.
Okay, Miss Camille. Thank you, sweetie.
you.